This video will explain the story of Elden Ring Nightreign. I'll be going over the main story, the endings, and the characters' main quests. As you may expect, there will be spoilers, so a quick spoiler warning for the game. We'll be jumping around a lot and talking about some endgame content very early in the video, so please make sure to beat the game and come back. As always, like the video if you enjoy, and subscribe for more story content. I make many story explanation videos like this, as well as analyses and retrospectives. I even have a 2.5-hour video breaking down Elden Ring's whole story, which, while rather intimidating in terms of length, should help you understand everything you need to know about Elden Ring, as it will also help us discuss Nightraign's events. But with that out of the way, let's get started. So the most important question we have to answer is where Nightreign fits within Elden Ring. Firstly, for the sake of the video, I'll be referring to the original game and the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC as Elden Ring, and Nightreign as Nightreign, so as to not confuse you. So when does Nightreign take place? Well, Nightreign and Elden Ring are two separate timelines. Think of it like an alternate spin on history, or a what-if scenario. That's why locations have similar names, like Elden Ring's Limgrave and Nightraign's Limveiled, or why certain characters return but are not the same as before. In an interview with IGN, director Junya Ishizaki stated that the events of Nightreign run parallel to those of Elden Ring. Each game has a shattering, but everything after that is different. As you remember from Elden Ring, on the Night of the Black Knives, assassins came and killed Marika's son, Godwyn. Marika then shattered the famed Elden Ring. From there, numerous events occurred, like the demigods warring with each other, claiming the great runes of the Elden Ring for themselves. These events seem to have occurred as well, since the shattering, while often described as the literal shattering of the Elden Ring, is also the name of the war that followed. Although frankly, it's not super important whether these specific conflicts between the demigods happened or not, as they're never acknowledged in Nightreign anyway. Now that does not mean Elden Ring's story is useless in a discussion such as this, not at all. Its events can actually provide us with context regarding things that happen in Nightreign, as we'll see soon. So then, what are we doing here? What's the premise? Well, as the intro tells us, the lands between were visited by a great war known as the Shattering, which in time drew forth an abomination, signaling the beginning of the night. When the night came, heavy rains followed, rains strong and destructive enough to wash away everything. It would deteriorate structures and wildlife, and if left unchecked, will destroy everything. The leader of this night is the Nightlord, who according to the priestess is a living cataclysm. All hope seems lost, but there are those with hope still left in them. People from all over, not aligned by tribe, clan, region, or even era. These beings are only aligned by the simple goal of taking down the Nightlord and ending the night, and these people are called the Nightfarers. The priestess also says that these Nightfarers were chosen by their formless master as they showed great potential, suitable enough to take down the Nightlord. These Nightfarers do not have a name, merely known by their titles: the Wylder, Guardian, Ironeye, Duchess, Raider, Revenant, Recluse, and Executor. According to the Servant of the Round Table, each one of these warriors committed a grave misdeed, which is why they were chosen. This connects to the message given to the priestess from the Formless Master, as it begins with calling them Seekers of Redemption. Where they were sent was the Round Table, a place for them to stay, plan, and train for the fight against the Nightlord. Joining them is their attendant. He is also known as the Iron Menial, menial being a word for servant. Judging by his design, he closely resembles the marionettes from Elden Ring, which were soldiers created to serve the Academy of Raya Lucaria. This relates to his backstory, as the Iron Menial tells us that he was one of many in a cog of war, before being modified to become proficient in housekeeping. However, it did not work as intended, so he was tossed away, only to wake up here at the Round Table. Unlike the Menial, though, who seems to have remembered his past life, these Nightfarers have forgotten much of their past. As said by the Iron Menial himself, those who are against the night find that even their most cherished memories eventually dissipate. Throughout the game, though, their memory starts to come back to them, and we get to relive some of their past memories to see who they were. But before we discuss them, we have to discuss their nature. Why was the Round Table created? What brought about the night? And why these individuals? While all the Nightfarers have their reasons for being here, there is something else going on as well. The final boss of the game drops the Primordial Nightlord's rune. This seems to be that of a great rune that could have belonged to the Elden Ring, which could explain the Nightlord's true power. Its description reads, quote, "The cutting-gifted tribe anticipated the coming night and spent many a moon planning its prevention, concluding that the only chance at success was to cheat a god. They'd glimpsed what they should not, the very sin of the Erdtree. For their trespass, so were they punished." Talking with the menial provides us with more knowledge. Down here in the crypt located beneath the Round Table are 8 coffins. This seems to be related to our 8 characters, as one mentions the Deep Woods, the home of the Recluse, and the other the Windwell Knoll, home of the Wylder and the Duchess. At the very back, the stone reads, quote, "To atone for the first sin, we elect to become the foundation." As said by the menial, this crypt is filled with ancient people from these lands. These souls were put here in anticipation of the coming threat of night, so that a ritual could be enacted to draw the minds of their descendants here. So each of these 8 characters did not come here by happenstance. There is a reason they were drawn to this land. However, we do have ourselves a rather diverse cast, many of them coming from different ages and realms, with one of them even being a doll. So it makes me wonder if all of them are truly descendants, or if it's just those from the Deep Woods and the Windwhale Knoll. Although when we think of tribe, we often think of a group of similar people. Maybe they were a ragtag group of people who fell under a common goal, much like our Nightfarers. That would explain how all of them are considered descendants. This cutting gifted tribe, though, does not appear in-game. From the word cutting, one can easily connect it to the word grafting, when a plant is combined with another. And given we're talking about the very sin of the Erdtree, maybe grafting has something to do with it. Now, Elden Ring does mention the word sin a few times. The finger reader of the Round Table claimed that burning the Erdtree was a cardinal sin. Miquella's Great Rune says that he abandoned everything to bury the original sin, whereas Mesmer's Remembrance says that he was hidden away, keeping company with the original sin. Maybe it's just semantics, but original and first sound the same to me. If it's not, then that means something else happened that we aren't aware of. If it is the same, then it's likely referring to the original sin from Elden Ring's DLC. Now, while the two games do not connect in every way, if we are to assume that everything up to the Shattering is consistent, then this would give us some indication as to what we're talking about. While we learned about this info in the DLC, the events that transpired that led to the Land of Shadow being the way that it is happened ages ago, way before the Shattering. So Nightreign could be referring to the original sin from the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. Even then, no one's really sure what the original sin was, since it was never explicitly stated, with me believing that it was when Marika became a god. This could actually connect to an item found in-game. There's a very rare chance you'll come across an item called Chord's End. Now, for full transparency and honesty, in the over 100 hours I've logged into this game, I've never had this item drop once. So I'll be taking the images shown from the IGN guide that details where to use this item. But what you're meant to do is to take this item to this place below the castle in the middle of the map. Inside are a set of sacrificial twigs and a statue of some kind in the back. The description of the item reads, "A carefully woven cord. This cord belonged to the young girls who were housed in a place that was meant as an eternal secret. The cutting gifted tribe vowed to sacrifice their flesh while concealing the truth, but the girls were too young to oblige." So this place seems to be where they hid the girls to use in their ritual. What that ritual is, though, is never stated, but I may have an idea. Firstly, this cord of the girls reminds me of the braid left behind in Marika's village. With that in mind, this entire setup seems closely related to what happened to Marika and her people during the DLC. For a quick refresher, Marika and her shaman people were taken by the Horn's End and were used as a part of their rituals. They were melded together and stuffed into jars in order to become saints. Marika would then later take revenge on the Horn's End by using their Gate of Divinity, ascending to godhood, and then having her son Mesmer destroy and hide them away. This ritual of the young girls from the cutting gifted tribe reminds me of this event. I'm not saying they're directly related, but the vibes of each match. The statue in the back is of a woman with her hands tied, and the design of this location closely resembles the crypt and the Round Table and the Spirit Shelter at the beginning of Day 3. The Spirit Shelter and the Round Table also have branches and trees that surround it. So it's clear that the tribe was trying to create their own tree, or maybe the Spirit Shelter was the tree. This was all likely in an attempt to defeat the Night. But they failed, which is why they decided that cheating a god was the only way to win. There's a passage in the Round Table that says, quote, "We lie the condemned of the first nightfall, whose sin is too great for absolution by our own deeds. Thus we shall ever guide our progeny until the night breaks." First nightfall implies that our Nightfarers aren't the first people to be fighting this, and that the battle against the Night has happened before. This would connect to the Whetstone item, which talks about the battle against the Night having existed for eons. So to sum up what I think is going on, the cutting gifted tribe may have tried to create their own tree by sacrificing these young girls, likely in an attempt to stop the Night. But they obviously failed, so they decided to become the foundation of these roots at the Round Table, which was a part of their ritual to bring their future descendants here, so that they could succeed where they could not. But of course that is all just speculation. With that in mind though, let's discuss these descendants. We could first start with the Wylder. As stated before, Wylder is not his name, but rather a title, likely stemming from the Old English version, meaning wild animal. Wylder is from Windwhale Knoll, a quaint little place far from the lands between. He came here to defeat the Nightlord, as the Night had come to his home and massacred his tribe. Along with him, he brought his trusty sword, shield, and an earring. Its counterpart, though, has been lost to time. While here he dreamt of his home, he recalled the memory of 2 horses galloping at Windwell Knoll. Within the journal is a mention of Wylder and a suspiciously blank name. Before Wylder could be enveloped in the memory, the Iron Menial awoke him, for he had an errand for him to run. The menial keeps everyone's gear in top shape, but the whetstone he's using has lost its touch, so he requests that the Wylder pick up one for him. Down in the mines of Limvale is the whetstone he requires, guarded by one of the mine's Crystallians. As a reward for this errand, he gives him what's on the table, which includes some relics, but notably, an earring. This earring belongs to the priestess, but Wylder is merely going to borrow it before returning it to her. Holding up the earrings to the light from the ceiling reveals a symbol and a message, which says 2 horses gallop side by side. May the wind spur us on our path. So what's going on here? Well, Wylder's earring is a part of a set, with the other belonging to his sister, who we've just met. After beating the first boss or getting lucky enough to have it drop, you'll eventually earn the pocket watch. Giving this to the priestess unlocks the Duchess. She couldn't fight without the pocket watch, as that is her signature weapon. But now that it's back in her hand, she could join the rest of the Nightfarers and pull her weight. Her quest intertwines with Wylder. Unfortunately, Wylder sustained some injuries on the way to the Round Table, and according to both the Menial and the Revenant, he will succumb to these injuries, likely after the Nightlord has been killed, but until then he'll be ready to fight. The Duchess can also then find Wylder enjoying some nice pita bread. It was a recipe taught to him by his mother. Reading its description, the Duchess recalls the taste of this pita. Upon eating it, the text reads, a wistful reminder of childhood. All these connections point to the Wylder and the Duchess being twins. Wylder's journal frequently references twin horses in reference to them. And while the Duchess's items mention that she was adopted, numerous lines from the NPCs confirm that they are related. Both of their journals seem to explain how they came in contact with the Night. Their mother was inflicted with the Night during birth and can only be rid of it by dying. But the Night lived on in the Duchess, which we could see in a cutscene. At some point, the Duchess embarked on a journey, and it seems as though much time had passed since, as Wylder forgot her face and her name. But then the Night came and massacred their tribe, leaving the Wylder as the only survivor. None of them discussed this revelation with the other, but doing both their quests means that they are both aware of their familial ties. The question is, what are they going to do now? Wylder will die if the Nightlord is defeated, and as priestess of the Round Table, the Duchess is tied to the Round Table. We were told that the Round Table will cease to exist once the Nightlord is defeated, as its purpose will have been served, and because she's tied to its existence, if the Round Table goes, she goes with it. So the only way to stop them from dying is to keep the Night going, but they were brought here to stop the Night. That is the one duty they were given, the sole reason they're even here at the Round Table to begin with. So what is one to do with this knowledge? Well, both went in opposite directions. The Duchess spiraled a little. Her stalwart attitude began to falter. She looks towards Raider, Revenant, and the Menial for advice. The Revenant noticed her conflict and so challenged her to a duel. In her own unique way, the Revenant was trying to get the Duchess's head on straight. Beating the Revenant in a duel shows her resolve, that she hasn't strayed from the path, and that she is still here to kill the Nightlord. She says that the Duchess is strong, and that only the strong wield true power. But further says that with strength comes the burden of duty, wondering if it ever occurred to the Duchess that she's here for this exact reason. During this time, she was also talking with Raider. She wonders if they should kill the Nightlord. Is it really worth the effort, especially when her brother's life is at risk? Raider then tells her the story of his navigator, Weathervane. She was a valuable part of his crew, even seeing Raider as an older brother. But one day they had a falling out, and she left. Assuming it was a bid for attention, Raider never went after her. Unfortunately, he never saw her again. Ending their talk by saying, when you let your passions get the better of you, things have an awful way of going south. Keep your cool, lest you do anything you come to regret. You can actually find the grave of Weathervane in Limvale. You could find her notes and bring them back to Raider. Upon doing so, Raider changes his advice, saying, who's to say that when you choose one path, you forego the other? It's your journey. Take all the paths you like. Later, she found a torn-up note which was meant to be given to her, written by the Menial, which would give her a way to take those paths. During the remembrance, she blesses the iron coin that Wylder gave her. This turns the iron coin into the blessed coin. She'll then visit the underground crypt to talk to the Menial. He once again says that once the Round Table has served its purpose, all will disappear, but she need not worry, as the Menial will be with her to the very end, so she has a friend by her side. But she has a better plan. She wants him to go to Wylder after all this is said and done. This is likely due to her powers as the priestess. We aren't fully aware of the extent of her powers, in the same way we know very little of Melena's powers. But she was able to bless the coin and tie the Menial to Wylder. As said in the note left by the Menial, quote, as you are well aware, my lady priestess, you are bound to the Round Table hold. But if the object were not born of flesh and blood, it could venture beyond the Round Table hold. But to make such a thing possible, to connect to the Wylder in the outside world, before he draws any closer to death, we require a fetish. Such a bond could be established if the object that he kept on his person was to receive a blessing, but the chances are slim indeed, and I can't bear to think of leaving you, Lady Priestess, all alone. The Duchess found a way to make both paths work. One where her brother can live on past the defeat of the Nightlord, and one where the Nightlord is defeated. She just won't be there to see it. She wants the menial to follow the blessed bond between the two and safeguard her brother's life. She knows what her role is and what she must do. She will be alone once the Nightlord has been defeated, but her brother will be protected, and to her, that's all that matters. Wylder, on the other hand, had a totally separate idea. He found a note within the Duchess's belongings that reinforces her link to the Round Table, although it ends by saying that a new knight may be able to break the connection. He speaks to the Recluse, asking for advice. She instructs him to find a larval tear. These were items made by the Nox to create their silver tears, creatures that were reborn again and again to create their Lord of Night. So with this in mind, what does Wylder plan to do with this? For that, we will have to wait, as unlike the Duchess, his quest results in an actual ending. One of the more strange creatures among the group is the Guardian. We've seen demi-humans in Elden Ring before, like Bach or Hewig, but nothing like him. The Guardian is a part of a tribe of pinion folk. Pinion, by definition, is an end part of a bird's wing. But it also means the act of pinioning, which is when someone removes a bird's pinion joint to prevent it from flying, a rather apt name given the Guardian's history. As told by him, he was born in the winged realm and was a knight of the pinion folk, sworn to protect their land and its people. One day they were attacked by a group of people. Like clockwork, they suited up for battle. The Guardian and those of the Scapular Regiment used their shields to block the arrows that flew towards their flock. They would then defend their land while those of the Talon Regiment swept in, ready to plunge into their fortress. The battle had basically been won, until the cursed blades had been brought out. These had cut the joints of their wings, forbidding them from ever flying again. Judging from some of the conversations at the Round Table, it seems as though the Raider was involved in this attack somehow, although to what end we simply do not know. After this utter failure to defend his people, he became purposeless, until he was brought to the Round Table. Here he met the Recluse, a witch from the deep woods armed with much knowledge of the world. He took a liking to her, eventually becoming her student, believing that if he was armed with knowledge, he could have protected his people. But the memories of his past flock and their demise still haunt him. Raider had fashioned him a helmet, one that perfectly matches his armor, but he refused it. Not because of the Raider himself, but because he laid down his helm long ago, ever since he lost the flock he failed to protect. But the menial worked hard to help the Guardian uncover the secrets of these accursed blades, so no other flock, pinion or otherwise, would be harmed in the future. But the story of the blades and their curse is a part of 3 tomes, 2 of which are missing, but the menial believes that they may be somewhere in the lands between. To the southwest of Limvale lay a Guardian Golem. It carries with it a stone stake that can open one of the tomes. As while the Guardian was busy finding the key, the Recluse found one of the tomes. The tome tells us that the weapons were crafted by a master of curses, under contract to an army determined to achieve victory, showing us that there is an original owner to these weapons. As time passed, things continued as normal, until a random merchant came to the Round Table. Claiming to sell relics, the merchant also gifted the Guardian and the other Nightfarers charms to carry with them, but as he walks away, the Guardian collapses. Upon awakening, he learns that the charm seems to have carried a curse or some kind of effect with it. The menial then instructs those of the Round Table to remove their charms and throw them away. The Guardian then confronts the merchant. While he may have become partners with these Nightfarers by happenstance, he started to care for them, just as he cared for his old flock. But like those who wielded the blades, another threat came to his flock, and so as the guardian of his new flock, he must deal with the perpetrator. On the corpse of the merchant was a ledger, showing that he conveyed ancient annals to a demon, which seems to be related to our cursed blades. This demon is actually the merchant you could find in Limvale. The item the Guardian was given was the 3rd tome, and with it, he learned the truth. His teacher, the Recluse, was its creator. On her person is a magical brooch. Its description says that its power created the accursed Ictaris blades. The brooch was meant to be a tool used to calm the winds of their lands, but their recent war forced them to use it for more deadly reasons, eventually leading to the accursed blades that cut down the Guardian and the Pinion folk. The Recluse does not run away, nor make an excuse. She knows what she's done, and so awaits judgment from her student. Regardless of the option chosen, the Recluse will be spared, either by the Guardian laying down his weapon, or by him smashing the magical brooch instead. There is a journal entry that displays the liveliness of the Round Table. Raider was slamming down drinks, while Ironeye was busy aiming an arrow at him. Both were playfully enjoying their company, all while the Executor was hard at work painting. The Guardian had lost his family. It's a loss he can never get back, nor recover from. But through his painful journey, he came to find company in his new allies. To the Guardian, just because he suffered does not mean they should either. He knows what the Recluse did, but he also knows the Recluse better than anyone else. He knows how strong of a fighter she is, but also how educated and caring she is towards him. If given another chance, I'm sure she wouldn't have done the same thing again. He may have lost his old flock, but now, donning the helmet given to him by the Raider, he finds a new purpose in life. His dedication to helping those around him never wavered. But even though his old flock, those of the Winged Realm, are gone, through his time here he's found a new flock, the Nightfarers of the Round Table. So he lives to defeat the Nightlord and protect his new friends, for there is nothing that can get past the shield of the Winged Guardian. Another member of the Round Table is the archer of the group, known as the Ironeye. He is originally a part of a group known as the Fellowship, said to be master assassins. He was just finishing up a contract when he received note from his custodian Isolde, which was the heads of the lands between, to await his next orders. From there he found the priestess and the Round Table. Sometime later the note arrived. Quote, I am certain you are aware of the destruction of the boarding house in the Duskin Valley. Root out the traitor and retire him. You can pick up his trail in the lands between. Isolde also says that the Fellowship standard procedure is in effect here, meaning he will have to gather everything himself, including travel expenses, info, and allies. The Fellowship will not be there to help him. During his time at the Round Table, the priestess brought him aside to chat. She is not only aware of his quest here, but even knows the traitor he's searching for. She then reveals the traitor to be him, or another him to be precise. As she explains, someone summoned to the Round Table had abandoned their duties. She wants Ironeye to eliminate this band of condemned. Condemned are beings who faced the night, but failed, surrendering to the darkness. They, in effect, are the very same members of the Round Table. During your runs, you may come across the location on the map with this green and blue circle around it. Within that area are not only whatever enemies that would typically spawn there, but also a condemned being. These condemned are always members of the Round Table. This is seemingly connected to some of the bodies you could find in Limvale. Sometimes other people's gear can be found across Limvale for you to pillage. These are phantoms from other worlds. So in the case of the condemned, they are the Nightfarers from other worlds who failed in their quest to defeat the night and were overcome by it. According to the Duchess, not only are they Nightfarers, they can multiply, spreading their corruption from one world to the next. This Ironeye was likely one of the many who died, except they are not the traitor we are looking for. Once the Night Huntsman is taken care of, the Ironeye will find a note of the real traitor on its body. The letter calls out Ironeye, letting him know that when the Nightlord nears, he will come. Eventually, he kept his word, but was stopped by the Duchess before he could do any real damage. She did not kill him, though, assuming the Ironeye would want to do it himself. He stabs him, but nothing happens. He cannot be killed through normal means. Only a weapon known as the Edge of Order can kill him, which is found by defeating Fulgor, one of the Nightlords. The Edge of Order is a fragment of a spear imbued with holy power. The reason this can kill the traitor is because he, and the Fellowship, including our Ironeye, are those who live in death. What brought about the shattering was the Night of the Black Knives, where the Black Knife assassins killed Godwyn the Golden. At the same time, Ranni, a Carrion witch, had slain her own skin. This caused the curse mark to appear, but only half. The other remained with Godwyn, as both died at the same time. Because of this, their bodies and souls were split. Ranni destroyed her body but kept her soul, now living on in a blue doll, while Godwyn lost his soul but kept his body, mutating into a grotesque creature, found beneath the lands between in the deep-root depths. When this happened, the Rune of Death was spread across the lands between. The Rune of Death was stolen from Malekith and then imbued into the blades of the Black Knife assassins. Well, this Rune of Death had then spread its corruption, creating Deathroot. Deathroot is what we have to give to Garang/Malekith back in Elden Ring. Those who come in contact with the Deathroot become those who live in death. To the Golden Order, this is heresy, as those who die must return to the roots of the Erdtree to be reborn, but this process makes them undead in a certain respect, going against and subsequently disrespecting the Golden Order's rule of law. That's why soldiers like Dee were sent to uproot this evil from the world. But there are also many tarnished like Fia who comforted those who live in death. Roger put it rather nicely when he said that those who live in death have done no wrong, merely happened to touch upon a flaw of the Golden Order. Ironeye and his Fellowship are those who live in death, although their relation to people like Fia, Roger, and the other tarnished are unclear. Upon returning with the Edge of Order, he stabs the traitor. Before his death, he tells the Ironeye the secret he promised. They are, in effect, already dead, but their curse does not allow them to rest, a lot like Godwyn. For those who live in death, they could not rest until the Nightlord was defeated, saying that battle to them was not suffering, but pleasure. But while this happened, he received a message from Isolde. See, the scions of the Fellowship, people like the Ironeye, are fated to be disposed of once their part has been played. So Isolde dreamed of a way to prevent that, to wrest the power of the Night and bend the rules that govern their realm. The scions of the Fellowship were to kill the Nightlord, but once a Nightlord is dead, what will happen? Their role in the play will have come to a close. Isolde wanted the other scions and the Ironeye to live, to fight in endless night so that they may always have purpose. So what will Ironeye do with this information? Well, he too has an ending, so we'll circle back to this soon. By far the most hardy and brutish of the bunch would be the Raider. A pirate of the coastal waters, he loves nothing more than a worthy rival. Hearing tales of this so-called Nightlord, he came to the lands between to challenge the beast for honor and glory. While he was at the round table, the menial took notice of the Raider and his thirst for battle. Beside him is a record, detailing the outcome of the past fights. He urges the Raider to look upon the stone, given that he is a warrior who loves battle, only for the fireworks to sprout from it. The arena has called to the Raider. He has been chosen to fight in the tourney of the lands between. To prove his strength, the Raider must engage in battle with 3 opponents. His first opponent is a gladiator, wearing armor similar to that of the warden duelists from the lands between. Assuming the lore hasn't changed, these were gladiators who were exiled from the Colosseum. Seeing as he is still referred to as the gladiator, it seems though he has not been permitted to leave. Gladiators were often adorned in armor featuring snakes, animals viewed as traitors to the Erd Tree. As such, many onlookers rejoiced in seeing them killed in combat. Once finished, he's given his next opponent, an elder lion. However, upon its defeat, the menial finally learns of the Raider's true nature. Long ago, it was said that a being known as the White Horn ruled over the West Waters, while the Black Claw presided over the Eastern Seas. Due to their nature, they became rivals, vowing to do battle one day, and soon that day will come. For see, our Raider is White Horn. Or is he? As when the match begins, the enemy is White Horn. Confusingly, he even becomes an ulcerated tree spirit during the match. See, the Raider is actually Black Claw. Chapter 7 of his journal mentions how the Raider waited for his opponent to show, only for him to never arrive. The Raider had given White Horn his necklace, while White Horn gave him his helmet, a sign that they would both come for their possessions soon, and when they did, battle was sure to ensue. Weathervane, that old navigator of his though, had said that the White Horn had been taken by the night, as the western seas were overcome with darkness. So the Raider had kept his helmet as a reminder that they would one day settle this rivalry. Well, that day had finally came. As when the hammer landed upon the tree spirit, the White Horn had been killed. In honor of their battle and the bond they shared through their rivalry, he gave his friend his armor back, letting him roam free on the coastal waters, now that the night no longer has a hold over him. Subsequently, also allowing our Raider to become the Black Claw once more. As he sits by the grave, he wonders how Weathervane would have recorded their battle. For see, pirates of the coastal waters love nothing more than a worthy rival. And the battle between the White Horn and the Black Claw were sure to be one for the history books. During your adventures in Linville, you may stop by a shop owned by a little jar. Within their wares is a besmirched frame. Buying this allows you to find a ghost within the round table. Talking to it throws you into a duel against the ghost. Defeating it reveals it to be our next Nightfarer, the Revenant. Unlike many of the Nightfarers of the Round Table, the Revenant cares little for revelry and talk. She smells the stench of failure that permeates this place, and would prefer not to talk to anyone. This has made some of the Nightfarers conflicted in their thoughts on her. So the Guardian decided to give her a task, to prove to the rest of the Round Table that she is one of them. She must slay a Nightlord. Upon doing so, the Round Table understands that she means business and is here as an ally. Her dialogue centers around anger and revenge against the Night. It's part of the reason she's willing to join the Round Table, as while she does see them as fools, they are fools with a goal equal to hers. The origin of her hatred is shown to us in 2 flashbacks. The Revenant is a doll, as evidenced by the joints on her fingers and crack on her cheek. Where the flashbacks take her is the Northern Croft Manor. It's said to be a rich household with a fashion for making puppets. But one day the Night had crept into the manor, killing all who lay inside. The cutscene shows a man beating a woman off screen before killing a young girl who was trying to hide. Despite what the journal may have you believe, the girl is not the doll. The first few chapters tell us that the doll contains the soul of the girl, and the Revenant refers to the doll as an object or something that she is a part of. Later chapters contradict this by having the Revenant refer to the girl and the doll as separate beings. The girl is named Chloe, while the doll is named Daphne. And our Revenant is Daphne, the doll. We can briefly see the doll move its hand before Chloe is killed, implying that she awoke before Chloe's death. And the final chapter of her journal says, "The daughter of the house is no more. She will never caress my face again, no matter how I yearn. I was never human, and now the mantle of doll no longer fits me." There is a belief in our world called animism, the idea that all things, be they objects, places, or creatures, possess a spiritual essence, or soul, if you will. Now, From Software is notably a Japanese company, so this may be further related to a tradition or cultural superstition within Japan. It's not the first time there was a reference to Japanese culture or tradition in a Souls game, so feel free to let me know if the rabbit hole goes deeper. But this concept of animism seems to be related to our Revenant. She first came to when the man had attacked Chloe. Her journal says that she tried to escape the encroachment of the night. Her love for Chloe, who loved to dress her up in makeup and elegant clothing, is what sent her down the path of revenge. To kill the Nightlord for killing her family. The old portrait we get at the end of the quest tells it best. On that night, the doll understood the young girl wished to live, and with that understanding, the doll found her purpose. Now, some notable parts of the Revenant's backstory are worth discussing before we move on. Firstly, the Night itself. The Nightlord is not shown in the cutscene, and we have no proof that it was the Night that did this, or if it was simply just a home invader. We do fight a few beings known as the Corruption and the Contaminant, but these are clearly the Revenant wrestling with her mind. She fears the Night for what it did to her family, so she's scared to confront it and the truth of what happened that day, so these fights are about her regaining her composure. The actual events that transpired are in that final cutscene, so we can only go off the Revenant's own accounts of the events and believe that it was the Night that caused this. Secondly, the assailant does not seem to be anyone notable. The only image in the manor is of Edgar Northerncroft, esteemed patron of the manor. Edgar looks quite old, even sporting a beard with some grey in it, much different compared to our assailant, who looks much younger and has no beard. It is a little bit strange of FromSoft to specifically show the father of the household and then have him not be the killer, but it does also look like the manor was broken into. So this man does not seem to be related to the Northerncroft family, at least as far as we know. Thirdly, the Revenant is one of 2 spellcasters in the party. While her basic seal uses Rejection and Heal, only when fighting her does she use triple Rings of Light. This was a gift from Miquella to his father Radagon, and is one of the incantations of Golden Order fundamentalism, the religion that follows the Golden Order of the Elden Ring. This is a rather specific spell to have on hand, which could maybe point to the Northerncrifts being people of nobility, possibly even residing within the royal capital of Lindell. But strangely, she also sports the Death Lightning spell, a spell notably wielded by Godwyn during the attack against the ancient dragons. She's also the only one in the party to have summons. Helen, Frederick, and Sebastian are the summons she calls into battle. Helen wears the page set, who are nobles that you'll see following the perfumers, both in Nightreign and in Elden Ring. Frederick is very likely a Mad Pumpkin, also seen in both games, who according to their ashes are former gladiators, and Lindell notably has a coliseum in it. And Sebastian is just a large skeleton. You can sometimes find them summoned by the Tibia Mariner or even by grave sites, like in the mountaintop of the Giants. Her visual codex description lists Helen as a page, Frederick as a cook, and Sebastian as a butler, possibly connecting to the Northerncrift status as nobility and those of high status. She could summon these creatures with her lyre, but how she's able to do this, or how the lyre gained this power, is unknown. Her weapon says that she has a resonance with the spiritual, likely due to her not being alive herself, which might be our explanation. And finally, when activating the Revenant's ultimate, if you look at her face, you could find a skull behind her frame. This may imply that the Northerncrifts use actual human bones as the basis for their puppets, which would explain why they are so detailed. It may even explain how Daphne gained a soul, as the corpse inside her contained one from its past owner. And it might even, and this is a stretch, explain our murderer, as he may have learned this secret. Either way, it is certainly an inspired choice to include this, leaving us with the wonder if Daphne's creators have some sinister history we aren't aware of. The next member of the Round Table is the Recluse. Having known that she was behind the origin of the accursed Ictaris blades, it might not surprise you to learn that she has more sinister things hiding under that large hat of hers. She came here from a place known as the Deep Woods, to search for someone, a being coiled in shadow. That someone was her beloved infant. Like the Revenant, some doubt her devotion to the cause, specifically the menial. He fears that she may be planning an indiscretion. He understands that it's just a wild thought, but it is a thought he cannot seem to part with. So we ask the Recluse to slay some night-tainted enemies to prove her allegiance. These enemies are just one giant night-swallowed golden hippo. It drops a shard after its death, something rather unremarkable to everyone except the Recluse. The Recluse knows that her infant child still remains somewhere in Limvale, that's why she came here in the first place. She seeks a night shard to grant her connection to her child, the night shard she just picked up. After being given the shard, the menial believes the Recluse, and to make amends for his doubt, he vows to work even harder to help her in her quest. After some time, the menial observes the shard pointing in a specific direction. Calling over the Recluse, he talks about the history of the night shard. In a dispute between two realms, there was a beast at the center of the affair that devoured soldier after soldier. No one saw the beast, but they saw what was left behind. The menial points out that the tooth marks of the Night Shard resemble the same tooth marks left behind by the creature, further saying that this could link them back to the Nightlord. Taking the shard for herself, she goes back to the bedroom, only to find a vestige of night on the bed. The vestige is proof of the Nightlord's presence. There is also an engraving on the rag itself, but it is no longer legible. Although, the menial knowing that there was an engraving on the vestige before even seeing it does raise some eyebrows. The Recluse, however, already knows where the next lead goes. She sensed the familiar magic within the vestige, that of her sister, the Witch of the Wheel. But according to her, the Witch of the Wheel should be dead. But it was the Nightlord who brought the witch back to life. She is mad at the Recluse, for it was her infant that raged and devoured everyone, even the Witch of the Wheel, while the Recluse remained the only survivor. But now that she is back, she tells her to stop following in the footsteps of the Nightlord, ending by saying, can the Recluse really slay her own child? So what's going on here? Well, the infant was the shadow that killed those armies, and the infant is the Nightlord. Sort of. When discussing it with the menial, he says, as you tell it, the Nightlord grew from a shadow hatchling, implying that the Recluse is responsible for its birth. But the actual state of the Nightlord, what it looks like now, implies that she may not solely be at fault. The Nightlord grew rather fantastically after it passed its infant stage. This is a part of an ongoing idea I have that the Nightlord is like an amalgamation of beings or something to that effect, given its 3 arms, strange attire, and design at the end of one of the endings. So while the Recluse is responsible for creating the infant, everything else after seems to be the infant's own decision. Further, the Night Shard says that it has teeth marks on it, implying that the infant bit the Night Shard and was consumed by the power of night. After their talk, she is given a bone-like stone. It states that it's a bone of an outer god, with the power to expunge divine essence, but that can also be destroyed by that same essence. The menial, when he was unconscious, had a dream that he was given this by the Nightlord, almost as if the Nightlord wanted him and the Recluse to find him. With this in mind, the Recluse knows what she must do. She must see this Nightlord and rewrite her wrongs. But what she does will remain a secret for now, for she is our third and final Nightfarer ending. Our final Nightfarer is the Executor. The Executor is a quiet fellow, a man of few words. He never talks to any of the Nightfarers and can only be found painting or looking at a painting of the Erd Tree. He's also rather poetic as seen by his journal entries. He hails from the land of reeds, a place briefly mentioned in Elden Ring. It's a place locked in civil war, isolated from the rest of the world. They also have a warrior caste known as the Samurai. Given his fighting prowess and katana, it's likely that he was one of the Samurai. At some point in time, though, he washed ashore and ended up here in the lands between, awestruck at what he had seen, for the Erd Tree's glow could capture the hearts of anyone. As he existed within the lands between before the death of the Golden Order and the Erd Tree at the hands of the Night, it's no wonder he longs to see its beauty again. Fortunately, the Duchess gave him a job to not only retrieve some Altus Bloom, but also a golden seed. Here in Nightreign they are referred to by different names, as the Grace of Gold no longer exists in Limvale, thanks to the Night. Interestingly, the Golden Sprout not only exists in a snowy tundra, but it's shocking to find one at all given the circumstances. It's as if a miracle occurred, and that the light of the Erd Tree will never disappear, even when the encompassing threat of night overtakes it. Upon returning with these items, the Executor has a flashback to a time before the Round Table. We get to see the Erd Tree again, in all its wondrous beauty, a beacon of light missing from Nightreign, now returned. Waiting here at the foot of the cliff is the Executor, only to be challenged by the Executor. See, the Executor is also wrestling with his mind. Upon this being's defeat, we arrive at a painter's shed, where we see a dead Crucible Knight, a dead woman, and then a second Crucible Knight who stabs himself with a katana. Let's break this down. So the Crucible Knight with the katana is our Executor. Like the Revenant, his journal entries are partially lying to us, as he writes from the perspective of himself and the paintress. The chapters talk about a guest, an executioner, and a painter, but their connections seem to make little sense. See, our Executor was the Crucible Knight, tasked with killing this woman. Chapter 4 talks about a guest, saying, quote, I am a guest, or perhaps an executioner. The guest speaks. I will wait until your Erd Tree is complete. So it seems as though the Executor was going to kill the woman, but he was willing to wait until she finished her painting. Chapter 5 then goes on to say that the painting is incomplete. So instead she sketched in solace of an old friend of hers from the land of reeds who speaks not a word. She will then entrust the sketch to her guest, while also noting that the Erd Tree will not be complete before another executioner shows up after the first one. This means that the painting is not finished yet, and that soon another Crucible Knight will come to kill her, since the Executor did not finish the task. The sketch that accompanies this chapter is that of the Suncatcher sword, the sword you can use to deflect in-game. possibly implying that she was the previous owner of it and gifted it to him, or that she was merely sketching the blade the Executor wielded. Then from there, we have the cutscene where the Crucible Knight is seen dead, only for the second Crucible Knight to kill himself after seeing the death of the woman. So there are many theories to this questline. One is simply that the Executor killed the Crucible Knight but failed to protect the painter, or that despite having saved her from the Crucible Knight, he still had to kill her. Otherwise, someone else would have come and done it for him, like the second Crucible Knight. Further, was the Executor really from the Land of Reeds? Much of his memory is fragmented. The second chapter starts with him saying, "I am an artist, from the distant Land of Reeds washed up on the shore, inspired by what I saw." It's possible that the painter was from the Land of Reeds and stayed here in the lands between to paint the Erd Tree. If she were from the Land of Reeds, that would explain why she would be the owner of the sword, as none of the Crucible Knights in Elden Ring use anything remotely close to this. Although according to its description, it claims to be a living sword, one that has lost its voice but is forever loyal to its master, implying that the Executor is the owner. Adding to this, the Executor is a beast. His ultimate turns him into one. Like all the Crucible Knights, he has an aspect of the Crucible power embedded into him, this one called Beast. It actually reminds me of the massive beast in the Specimen Storehouse and Shadow of the Erd Tree. Now this does not necessarily mean that the Executor was from the days of the Crucible though. Gaining new body parts is common across all the Crucible Knights. Many of them have wings and tails, and others like Devonia transform their lower half, although the Executor certainly seems to be a step above the rest when it comes to his Crucible powers. The one thing we do know is that according to his description, his armor is infused with his body, and that he went missing after a prison stint in the lands between. It's obvious he didn't die given that we're controlling him, but this proves that he didn't die after trying to take his own life and was brought to prison for his crimes. This confusion as to what the right story is here is partially why the Executor has a fragmented memory. Not even he remembers what truly happened that day, which is why his battle with the Executor's cry is meant to get him back on track, so to speak. This will allow him to remember the past, remember what truly happened that day, although as we've discussed, the finer details of this day are still up to interpretation. Regardless of the true nature of this tale, the questline is one of guilt that stems from the death of the painter and the death of the Erd Tree. This line from Chapter 7 is rather interesting, where he says that he has two faces and a soul drenched in blood. Maybe in some way he's atoning for his past, a past of reckless killings, seeking to find redemption by facing the night, as its power took away the bright light of the Erd Tree, and by defeating the night, he'll have completed his painting of the Erd Tree. But as you recall, despite their seemingly innumerable differences, they are all here to fight the Nightlord, a three-headed beast known as Gladius. Gladius began its life as a wolf pup, uniquely born with 3 heads. Because of its abnormality, it was feared by its peers and driven out of the pack it belonged to. Despite its harsh upbringing, it was dedicated to living at any cost. But on a rain-swept night, it took a man's sword, wielding it within its jaws. But the man showed no fear, something unheard of to the wolf. Instead, the man took the wolf pup and raised it, and it remained at his side ever since, always carrying the man's sword. After its defeat, it seems like the world has been saved, but the priestess has some bad news. The Nightlord yet lives. There are more Nightlords, so our task is far from over. The Round Table has managed to track down the traces of 6 other Nightlords. Defeating these beasts drops an essence of the night. Collecting 4 of them should reveal the real Nightlord. Going down the list, the second Nightlord is a beast known as Adele. It was a dragon, considered to be the apex predator of its region, but when the reign of the night came down to its land, it killed everything it fed on, leaving it ravenous, hungry, which in time drove it mad. Noster is the third Nightlord and an insect duo. Both insects seem reminiscent of a moth, specifically a white satin moth, which is known for its white and fuzzy skin, and a scorpion. Interestingly, insects working in harmony are a common sight throughout nature. Relationships between insects can be parasitic, mutualistic, or commensal. Parasitic is when one gains benefit from the partnership while the other is harmed. Mutualistic is when both benefit from the partnership. And commensalistic is when one gains benefit while the other gains nothing and is not harmed, simply existing alongside them. Fascinatingly, a type of commensalistic relationship is called foracy, which is where one insect joins another simply for the sake of travel. As pointed out by their description, the secluded forest from which they came from was eaten away by the surrounding desert. Not having enough food and water to survive, the insects all left, 2 of which banded together, giving us our duo. From looking at their boss fight, it seems to be mutualistic though, as the 2 often work together to take down the Nightfarers, even combining about halfway through. Although the moth has a grab attack that leaves behind a parasite that poisons the player. Could the moth have also poisoned the scorpion? It's not clear. The boss is officially named Noster, Wisdom of Night. Noster is close to Gnosticism, specifically Gnosis. Gnosis is a Greek word for knowledge, so Noster likely implies someone who is knowledgeable, connecting to its name as the wisdom of the night. The fourth being is known as Augur, or by its boss name, Maris, Fathom of Night. In the Roman days, augurs were people who practiced augury, a practice which involved studying birds for signs of omens. It seems to have been a tool used to decipher messages from the gods, such as when the land would be cursed or if the people would be blessed with a good harvest this season. As for the creature itself, according to its description, it's an unknown entity that drifted throughout the skies, making an ocean of its surroundings, so that it may blend with whatever life is found as if in a dream. Its relic states that for the first time in its existence, the drifting ancient being realized that its interest was piqued. It was roused from its aimless life of floating, thanks to the strange taste of the night. Next up is the equilibrious beast, known as Libra. Libra is a goat-headed being who pretends to be a man, said to be able to use dubious forms of alchemy. Libra is called the Demon of Night. Its relic states that the demon was obsessed with the concepts of impartiality. It became attached to the night because it saw how impartial the night was. Libra thought that the night was a champion of balance. Then there is the Dark-Driv Knight, Fulgor, champion of the night glow. An ancient centaur consumed by battle, his fervor for the gods he serves burns ever brightly within him as he wields the sacred form of the night's power. Which is likely why his title has the word Night Glow in it, the only being in the game to have such a name. Fulgor was considered to be the left arm to the gods, but he had been attacked from behind, losing that arm in the process, as his companions have forsaken the very gods they once served. Despite the betrayal, he seems to have found comfort in the night, as he was also gifted a left arm to replace the one he had lost. And the final being is Caligo, Miasma of the Night. She was a prehistoric dragon that lurked within the fog, atop a large mountain where it could watch over much of the world. As it peered through the fog like a fissure, it noticed a calamity in the distance, likely the calamity that was the Night Lord. After seeing such a thing, it came down from atop its mountain, wishing to know what this calamity would bring to the world. So naturally one might ask, why these creatures? What do these enemies of the night have in common? Like the Nightfarers, they seemingly don't display any kind of attachment to each other, merely aligned by a common cause. Well, unfortunately, the answer to all of this is speculative. A lot of these creatures seem to be intentionally designed to reflect themes of astrology, night, and the stars. Libra is the most obvious of the bunch, named after the star sign within astrology, which is sometimes depicted as a scale, implying balance, much like Libra the demon. Sagittarius is often depicted as a centaur, much like Fulgor, although he wields a sword, not a bow and arrow. Maris's design reminds me of the Elven Beast, at least in a cosmic sense, as both look like otherworldly creatures. Going by its name and title, it seems like Maris is meant to resemble a creature of the sea. Maris is derived from the Latin phrase Stella Maris, meaning star of the sea. And its title, Fathom of Night, is also quite notable, as fathom is a unit of measurement, used to measure the depths of water. This would connect to the line, making an ocean of its surroundings. Yet it does not swim in water, rather fly in the sky, possibly giving us its connection to the night and the night sky. Two constellations in the world are also Canis Major and Scorpius. Canis Major is often considered the dog star, and could connect to Gladius, while Scorpius is said to contain the Bug or Butterfly Nebula, connecting to Noster. But admittedly, not all of them have this direct of a connection. Adele is described as a dragon, same as Caligo, but neither of their names nor titles seem to have ties to either a star sign or constellation. But this explains why From Software likely chose these names and appearances. It still doesn't explain why they're allied with the Night in the first place. The Night seems to be both a friend and a foe. It was likely the cause for why Adele could no longer find food, and why Nostra had to leave the forest. But it did also help Libra and Maris find purpose in their life. The Night is described as indiscriminate, tying to this idea of chaos. So maybe it picking random creatures from various walks of life is intentional. They do wield different elements and affinities, which could mean something, and Fulgor being called Nightglow and having Holy be his element of attack despite being the ally of the Night is rather interesting as well. But there does not seem to be a common thread between them, besides the fact that at a minimum they serve as the Lords of Night, with our final boss being the first of them. The final boss of the game is Heolstor, the Nightlord. It initially starts as the Shape of Night, before its full name is revealed. According to its description, it says, "Beyond the boundless night, there lies the hazy figure of a person. That is the night's origin, an enemy to the world. The signs shall reveal where the footprints of the primordial Nightlord lead." While its relic says, quote, "The country lay in ruin. The man who once was the night had challenged the hero, but he too was no match. He fell, just another body in a great pile. But eventually, he awoke, crawling out from underneath the others. Though he failed to protect anything or anyone, he yet lived, and so he cursed the world." It was the dead of night, and from the sky poured down a great rain. So the Nightlord was a being from a long time ago, and its name as the primordial Nightlord implies that he is the first Nightlord. This would connect to how after some time he will tear open a hole in the fabric of time. The colors of the sky and elements he uses closely match one of the other Nightlords, showing that he is a greater being than all the previous Nightlords. Being called the origin of the night is rather striking too. It's almost like Hailster is the physical embodiment of the concept of night. Consider how, in Elden Ring, the Greater Will sends down a star, that we would later come to learn is the Elden Beast. The Elden Beast is described as the vassal of the Greater Will and the living incarnation of the concept of order. But where the Elden Beast was a being of order and light, Hailster seems to be a being of night and chaos. This clash between the forces of light and dark is quite interesting to me. It's hard to see, but during the Shape of Night phase, Hailster almost looks constrained. The cloth that surrounds the black knightly essence inside him has a golden scripture on it, similar to the Cypher Pata weapon. Throughout its first phase though, it starts to unravel itself, before a killing blow unleashes all the dark essence from within it, essentially breaking his chains so to speak. His body is also completely hollow, only showing a black essence and the Great Rune, similar to how Radagon was missing part of his body. To me, at least, this seems to point to the Nightlord being a vessel for the darkness of night. But as we know, the Nightlord began from a hatchling created by the Recluse, so where does the story of the knight and hero fit in? Well, it's possible that when the infant grew older, it became the knight who died to the hero. Or, as mentioned before, the Nightlord could be an amalgamation of beings. This would combine with the various arms and variety of armaments, especially since one of those armaments seems to be the Dark Moon Greatsword. This was a sword that we received at the end of Ranni's questline, so that would imply that at a minimum he is of Carian descent. That's why I believe that Hailster is a part of the Night. His expedition does say Night aspect, after all. The Night Shard we find in the Recluse's questline says, quote, "The reach of the Night is limitless, its potential immeasurable. Its touch is indiscriminate, affecting any and all things. It also has bite marks which was caused by the infant, so the shard existed before the infant, implying that the Night is like a concept. This might explain how the Night was able to affect the assailant in the Revenant's questline, as the Night is a force of corruption, darkness, and chaos. It may also explain how the Night came to Hailster in his tale, as he cursed the world for not being able to save people, only for the Night to appear and grant him power. However, there is also the Nox. See, the Nox in Elden Ring were defeated by the Golden Order, forced to live under a false night sky. That was because they invoked the ire of the Greater Will, so now they live underground, awaiting the arrival of their new Lord of Night. The Nox's Lord of Night could be Nightraign's Nightlord. Regardless of what its true nature is though, the Nightfarers must defeat it to stop the Night. But what transpires will change depending on who you choose. Once Hailster is defeated, a different version of the Round Table is shown. Similar to the two Round Tables in Elden Ring, this may be the real Round Table. What you are meant to do is to take the primordial Nightlord's Great Rune and give it to this corpse. However, as the Recluse, you can go to the bed and find the infant lying there on the sheets. The Recluse then takes the child into her arms, giving it the love and care it never had. As her final entry in the journal states, "The crying hath now ceased. The gentle night within its breast knoweth now a peaceful slumber." The child has been cared for, and with a mother's touch, the night has left. For Ironeye, he will go up to the corpse with his knife and kill it. This being is supposed to bring an end to the night, as finishing the Nightlord isn't the only objective, but now that being is dead. As Ironeye says, the night is far from over. In the end, Isolde got her wish, as Ironeye is free from the Fellowship, free to do as he pleases, for the night shall never cease to end. And for Wylder, upon killing the Nightlord, he is seen taking the larval tear and inserting it into himself. He collapses before we see the Nightlord wander off. He wanted to keep his sister from dying, as the death of the Nightlord signals the death of the Round Table, and thus the end of the priestess. Through this, both he and his sister will live on. The twin horses may never roam side by side again, but Wylder will live on knowing that his sister is safe and alive. For he has not only managed to prolong his dying body, but save his sister, by becoming the new Nightlord. This also reinforces the idea that the Nightlord is a combination of beings, as the armor hasn't changed, almost like he's hijacked it and taken control so to speak. Or at the very least, has merged with the Nightlord. If you don't choose these routes with these characters, or play as any of the other members of the Round Table, your only choice is to give the Great Rune to the corpse. This being is never mentioned or alluded to in any of the text, so its existence is a complete mystery. It could be one from the Cutting Gifted tribe, or maybe it's related to their formless master. The being is notably wearing clothing and not armor, suggesting nobility, but the nobility is unclear. Upon giving the corpse the rune, the character you select is taken and turned into a yellow essence that races around the round table. This seems to imply that the Nightfarers are being returned to the Erd Tree. However, both the Duchess's journal and the menial mentions this idea of the outside world, implying that there is another world outside of theirs. So it seems as though the Nightfarers all lived and are being returned to their worlds now that their quest has been complete. One of the Erd Tree's petals touches a giant, only for it to wake up and walk away from the lands between. This giant looks an awful lot like the giants we see on Day 2 during the expeditions. There are many of them all seen heading towards the boss room on Day 3. Its face also looks a lot like the helmet of the Nightlord, suggesting that this may be the Nightlord or another aspect of the Night, and that the Erd Tree's presence had stopped it from achieving its goal of complete destruction. This implies that the Nightfarers have restored the lands between to its former glory. The land isn't destroyed but no longer being afflicted by the night. The lands between during the scene looks exactly how we remember it to be. It's almost as if the Nightfarers had reset the timeline back to before the night had won, and essentially written themselves out of existence. As if the timeline was reset and the night never destroyed the lands between, then the Nightfarers were never here to stop it. So one could say that the events of Nightreign are about the Nightfarers resetting the timeline so that the events of Nightreign never happened. But regardless, this leaves us with many questions, chief among them being the Formless Master. In Elden Ring, we were told that the two fingers receive messages from the Greater Will, which would instruct us on our path forward. The DLC showed us, though, that the Greater Will was never around. It stopped communicating with its daughter Metyr ages ago. It's possible then that the Greater Will, Metyr, or the two fingers were the ones who communicated through the Duchess. As one thing I noticed was the numerous fingerprints on the Night Giant. The only time fingerprints are relevant in Elden Ring is when discussing the fingers and anything associated with them. I think at a minimum this means that the fingers are somehow involved in all this. But this discussion regarding the fingers could then line up with Marika being the god who was cheated. She is, by definition, a god, and if we go with the fact that the original sin from Elden Ring is the same as the first sin from Nightreign, then that would mean that Marika punished them for discovering the truth. But all of this, from the god, to the tribe, to the sin, may be wholly unique to Nightreign, and not in any way foreshadowed in Elden Ring. Like many of From Software's titles, we are left with many questions and very few answers. And so, I should mention, like all my videos on the Souls games, I do not claim to be an arbiter of truth. These games require community input to be solved, so feel free to leave your own thoughts in the comments down below, and check out all the other lore videos that are soon to come from the rest of the Souls lore community. Nightreign does seem to be getting some post-launch support with some new updates coming soon and a DLC confirmed for this year. So who knows? Maybe, like the Nightfarers of the Round Table, we've only really read the beginning of the story, with many chapters soon to be revealed. But for now, this does at least bring us to the end of Elden Ring Nightreign. Before we end the video though, there was a few extra bits of lore I wanted to share, but I couldn't quite fit it neatly enough into the script. Nightreign's story ends up providing us with some interesting info, not only giving us answers to questions we've had for years, but also showing us how divergent the timeline has become. Two bosses you could face in Nightreign are Morgott and Godric, although they go by Fell Omen and Grafted Monarch in this game. Morgott can be fought during the intro. It's assumed you'll die, but you can rematch him through the Visual Codex. If you win, you're gifted with the Fell Omen Fetish. This seems to be a withered version of Margot's Shackle, which you can use to subdue Morgott during his boss fight. The item description, though, has changed to say, quote, "But the magic has long faded, leaving only a dark stain in its wake. The Protector of Gold yet stands guard over the realm, even after being swallowed by the night." Morgott, despite being Omen, still served the Golden Order and protected the Erd Tree and the Elden Throne. That's why he stops us at the foot of the Erd Tree. This isn't exactly a twist by any means, but it shows that Morgott is still fighting for the Erd Tree even in this timeline, even when the night had swallowed the entire land. Godric, on the other hand, seems to have gotten an upgrade. He notably uses his axe and the dragon head during his second phase. Godric in this game no longer sports the dragon head, now wielding crucible powers instead, something he did not have in Elden Ring. This would mean that he had grafted a Crucible Knight to him, or something that had the aspects of the Crucible power in it, although it is unclear who this victim was specifically. And then finally, one of the new locations in Nightreign is Nakhlatello, the Shrouded City. While the title notably says it's a Shrouded City, the Menial calls it an Eternal City, specifically a place that was once part of a greater whole. Within Elden Ring are three Eternal Cities, Nokron, Nokstella, and the third unnamed destroyed city in the Deeproot Depths. This very well could be that same Eternal City. But those were some small details I felt that were cool to share. As always, like the video if you enjoy, and subscribe if you're new for more content like this. Feel free to check out my other story videos, including the ones I made on the other Souls games. Thank you to my returning viewers for coming back to another video, and to the patrons who continue to support the work I do. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.